Let's talk about walkthroughs in terms of real estate and why they're important. If you're buying a home or renting an apartment, it's important to do a walkthrough before you cement the transaction. Good news for buyers. In New Jersey, you're allowed 2 walkthroughs before you purchase a home. Typically, homes close 45 to 60 days after contract signing. Your initial professional home inspection will probably occur within 2 weeks of the contract signing. If there are any issues, then your first walkthrough should be to make sure that any issues that came up in the inspection were addressed according to your agreement. This is usually timed after the mortgage commitment arrives, or a few days to a week before closing if it's a cash transaction, or sooner if the seller indicates that the items have been completed. When going to the first walkthrough, bring the inspection report or the attorney letter and check off the items that needed to be addressed. When you're there, it should be noticeable that the home is in the process of being packed up. This is also a good time to meet the sellers and ask them if they could leave any warranties and user guides for any of the home systems. For the second walkthrough, try to schedule it the morning of the closing. It's important at this walkthrough that there are no possessions there of the sellers. I'll tell you a couple of little stories on why this is so important. A buyer did her walkthrough a couple of days before the closing and saw that most of the personal effects of the sellers were gone. She was given the opportunity to do another walkthrough the morning of the closing, but she declined because she thought that there was a lot of progress made and it wasn't necessary. The closing took place in the early afternoon at her attorney's office. The sellers had already completed their documentation prior and did not attend the closing. The closing concluded, and later in the day, the buyer stopped by the house, but guess what? The sellers were still there packing up. She waited 3 more hours until they finally left. Another story. A seller was in the process of emptying her home and getting ready to move out of state. She was doing all the packing up for her family when the closing date arrived. The buyers came to do their walkthrough the morning of the closing, but she was still in the process of packing up. The buyers did not do the 2 walkthroughs. This was the only walkthrough that they elected to do. This created a dilemma. Should they reschedule the closing for later in the day? Reschedule the closing for another day, which is problematic and a bit of a hassle because now all of the documentation has to be redone and the movers rescheduled, or close and put some of the proceeds in escrow. Also not ideal and a bit of a hassle. They ended up closing later in the day and all worked out fine. These 2 stories had uncomplicated outcomes, but it could get complicated and be problematic depending on how the deal was structured. Let's get to the walkthrough itself. Since it's been up to 2 months since the contract was signed, anything could have happened with that home. So here are some things to check. The home systems: heating system, air conditioning system, irrigation system, alarm system, intercom system. The electrical systems, like the lighting, check the outlets, check the garage door opener, ring the doorbell. The plumbing systems. Check under the sink for leaks. Check walls and ceilings for any water stains. Flush the toilets. Run the faucets and check to make sure the hot water comes up and if there are any drips. The appliances. Turn on all the stove burners. Check that the oven works. Start the microwave and dishwasher. Turn on the washer dryer. Pests. Check the attic and basement for any evidence of pests. While you're there, check for any evidence of leaks and mold as well. The exterior. Check that doors lock and windows lock. Make sure that they open and close satisfactorily. Make sure that no plants have been removed and that the landscaping has been maintained. If there was a storm prior to closing, check that the roof and exterior components are all intact. What happens if it's the time of year where you can't check the air conditioning system or the heating system? It might be wise to take a home warranty policy out to cover appliances and system breakdowns post-closing. Ask your realtor to recommend some options. Moving is a stressful time for all, so have some compassion for the seller. It's not easy packing up no matter how long one has lived in a home. Making the time to take advantage of the 2 walkthroughs is a good thing for all involved because it keeps everyone on track. For tenants, if someone views a home that is still occupied, it's important to see it vacant and prepped and any issues repaired and in working order before their move-in date. Obviously, it's less complicated to move into an apartment that was vacant upon the initial showing. But if not, keep tabs with the landlord to make sure the prior tenant is out and that the preparation of the apartment is underway. When you do move to a rental, Take a video or pictures on the day that you move in of the condition of the apartment. That way you have a record for when you move out, if there was any prior damage, so there will be no issues in getting your deposit back. What a walkthrough is not about. It's not a time to make a new list of things that you want the seller to do before the closing. The professional home inspection should have uncovered any issues, and if the issues were to be addressed, the seller is responsible for taking care of them or not, depending on the agreement. You may wonder if a walkthrough can kill a deal. Yes, it can. 5% of contracts fall apart after an unsuccessful walkthrough. But take heart, 95% of the time the issues are resolved and the deals close. If you find yourself in a situation when the issues have not been resolved or the home is not vacant in time for closing, stay calm. There's a solution to every problem, and it's best for all to end the transaction on good terms. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more videos, please subscribe.